Hello Year 9, welcome to your first video lesson in RS, and it's after Easter now and you've had the Easter holidays to revise for your key terms test. And the main reason for doing this lesson as a video is because I couldn't think of a better way to do your key terms test, because if we wrote down what the words are then you'd know how to spell them, and it wouldn't be much of a test then. So just figured we'd do it like we do in class, where I'll read out the word and you have to write it down and write down what it means. And then we might as well just do the rest of lesson 1 as a video lesson, and I'll talk you through the tasks. Hopefully you've clicked on the link to the PowerPoint and the worksheet in your OneDrive link on Go for Schools, where you must have found that Go for Schools link, because that's what the one that's got the link to this video on it. So the fact that you're watching this means that you've done everything right so far, so well done. Anyway, so yeah, today's lesson we'll do the key terms test now, and then after that we'll go on to do the first lesson of the final unit of Year 9, which is called God and Revelation, or the existence of God and revelation. So it's all about whether God's real. If God is real, how is it that people know about God? What can be known about God, if anything? And in what, yes, just stuff like that really. Some of life's ultimate questions, I guess. So we'll do the key terms test first. So make sure you've got a bit of paper there with you and a pen. Hopefully you've still got pens and stuff, even though it's all the world is different at the moment. And just find a bit of paper. I trust that you've got those items now, and then we're going to carry on and do the thing. So remember, in the key terms test you get 1 point for the correct spelling of the word, and then you get another point for a correct meaning, because you had to look up what the words meant for your homework. Okay, so are you ready? If you haven't got enough time between the words, by the way, just pause it. I get so bored, I just read through them quickly. I don't like waiting, even because I know it's on video and it's recording. I don't like not having my voice speaking. Even if it's just 5 seconds, it feels like ages on a video. So if I don't give you long enough, just pause it. Word number 1, theist. Theist. What is a theist? Let's try and spell it, write it down what it means. Word number 2 is miracle. What is miracle? Word number 3 is creation. Creation. Just as a clue to that one, obviously that word has a more general meaning, but try and frame it in a religious studies kind of way, because we are doing religious studies after all. Why might we talk about creation in this subject in particular? Number 4 is general revelation. Stop it. Word number 5 is eternal. Word number 6, or phrase number 6, is the first cause argument. First cause argument. And finally, word number 7 is imminent. Imminent. While you're just finishing that one, I'll get a little mini whiteboard and a pen. Where is my pen? And so we'll go through the answers now then, and you can mark it yourself. Give yourself a score out of 14, and hopefully you'll do well. So word number 1 is theist. And it's spelt like this, theist. And the theist is somebody who believes in God. Theo is a kind of ancient word for God. I think it's an ancient Greek word for God, and that's where the word theology comes from. If you're learning about God, it's called theology. And in a way, theist just means God is. So there is a God. So that's theist. So I've got the ball rubber. So hopefully you got that one right. Next one. Oh, my handwriting is awful. I've forgotten how to write because it's been ages since we've been at school, and my handwriting is awful anyway. Okay, miracle is word number 2. Miracle. And there's loads of different ways to define miracle, but generally if you've written anything along the lines of an extraordinary event that breaks the laws of nature, or something that some religious people say that a miracle is something that only God can do, or when God intervenes in the world somehow. That'd be miracle. Creation, the next word, is spelt like this, creation. And in religious studies, when we talk about creation, we generally refer to the idea that the universe is created by God. Religious people think that this universe was made by a creative power called God. And if you wrote it in a general way, like creation is where you make something, then you could have half a mark for that. Not really keeping the scores anyway, to be honest. Anyway, general revelation is spelt like this. General revelation. And revelation is when something is revealed to someone. So again, in religious studies, we talk about that God being revealed to believers somehow. And there's 2 main types of revelation, general and special. Special revelation is where God might turn up in a dream or a vision to me and say, "Hello, I'm God. Go and do something amazing," or "Go and lead the people out of Egypt," was what he said to Moses. Or, "Mary, you're having a kid even though you're a virgin." Angel Gabriel talking to Mary. So that's like a direct encounter with God or an agent of God. But general revelation is more like where you can just generally see that God might be revealed through nature, or through the actions of other people, or things like that, or just general goodness in the world. So it's kind of more of a indirect way to have God revealed to you, generally through what the universe is like. The next word, word 5, is eternal. Eternal. And this word just means something that kind of has no beginning or end. It's outside of time, always existing. So, and again, don't worry if you've got it worded slightly differently. Doesn't really matter, as long as I rely on your judgment in class to always give yourself a mark if you think you deserve it. Okay. The first cause argument is written like this. First cause argument. And the first cause argument is an argument for the existence of God. It says there is a God because there must be some sort of first cause to the universe. The universe that we live in couldn't have just come about. Stop it. By nothing. Couldn't have just come from nowhere. There had to be some sort of first cause to kick off the universe and make it a thing. The people who believe in the first cause argument would say that the very fact that the universe exists points to the existence of some sort of creative power, because it couldn't have just come about from nothing. I mean, that argument is a mind-boggling one, and we are going to look at that next lesson in more detail, but don't worry about it for now. Anyway, the final word is immanent. Immanent. And in religious studies, immanent is a word that refers to the idea that God is all around us and with us in the world. So if you say that something is immanent, you kind of mean it's close by, it's close to you, it's here, it's almost upon us, or what have you. When people say something is immanent, they mean it's here. And so religious people think that God is a power that is immanent, it's kind of all around us, it's not just some separate thing in another universe or something like that. They think God is in this universe. So count up how many points you got. 1 mark for each correct spelling and 1 mark for each correct meaning, and it's out of 14. And I haven't done one of these in class for ages, but I think anything around 9 or 10 or more is a pretty good score, because that means you got, the majority of things right, which is really good. Okay, so moving on to the actual lesson that we would have been doing if we were in school. The first lesson about God and Revelation is kind of one of those lessons that just looks at some of the introductory ideas about God and belief in God, and gets you to sort of ponder what God is, or where God might be, and why do we speak about God the way that we do, and does it make sense to? Does any of it make sense? That's the beauty of philosophy of religion. It's thinking about things that are really hard to get your head around. So we'll move on to activity number 1 in just a second. So activity number 1 of this lesson is responding to some initial thoughts about where God might be and what God is. So if you click on the PowerPoint slide, the first and second slides get you to think about some phrases that people might say about where God is, and typical things that people might come out with when they're talking about God. And all you've got to do is look at those and jot down on your bit of paper what you think about each one. So when somebody says something like, God is in the sky, what do you think about that? What do you make of it? Do you believe it? Do you buy into that idea that there's some God type thing floating around in the sky? What are your thoughts on that? Other ones are things like, God is all around us on earth. Someone might say, God answers all our prayers. Again, what do you make of that idea? God created the world in 6 days is a really famous thing that everybody knows about God, that religious believers think God made the world in 6 days. Just jot down some of your ideas about these things. Pause this if you want while you go about doing that, and just see what kinds of thoughts and ideas you come up with, and maybe go around the house and speak to some other people that you're locked down with and find out what they think about some of these ideas. For example, one of the really interesting ones, I think, is the one where it says God only exists in the mind of believers. Is that a true idea, that God only exists in the mind of believers but has no reality anywhere else? So pause the video, go and have a word with everyone, jot down what you think, and I'll just wait here for a bit. I don't know how long to wait for. Oh, you've probably paused it anyway. I might as well just go straight on with the next bit then. What is the next bit? Don't know. Oh yeah. Right, well done for doing that. And I just went for a run round the block while you were doing that. And one thought that I just had while I was going around was that thing I was just saying about if you're religious or non-religious, the idea of God or goodness still kind of makes sense. Is that if you think about it, look, drew a little picture to help explain. If you imagine if you're a religious person, you believe in God, and you think that there's an actual sort of intellectual thinking power wherever it is in the sky or all around us or whatever. They believe that there's some sort of judging principle that gives us guidance, creates the whole universe, decides what goodness is, and gives us sort of instructions about how to behave in rules like the Ten Commandments and things like that, and also judges you on whether or not you follow all those instructions. So that's religious people. But even if you're not a religious person at all, just think now about the concept of goodness. Even if you're not religious, you still know what goodness is, and how, the fact that no matter how good you've been, you can always think, oh, it could be just a little bit better if I did this thing or I did that thing. Or if you've done something bad, you realise that you've done something bad by what a good person or a good outcome would have been in that situation. So in the same way, even if you don't even believe in God or anything, the idea of goodness instructs you what to do, because you can just think, right, in every situation, shall I do this thing? Shall I kick a cat, or shall I give the cat some milk? Well, you don't have to be that good at ethics to know that giving the cat some milk is the good action and kicking the cat is the bad action. So if you kick the cat, you can then judge yourself against that moral standard. So you know that standard does exist and it is real. And even if you think an ultimately good person couldn't exist because we all do stuff that's bad, it's still something that everyone can aspire to and look up to, in the same way that religious people look up to God. And goodness sort of guides you as well, like through your conscience. You soon know if you've done something out of order. You think, oh, I did that really bad thing, and you feel guilty because of it. And it's because you're judging yourself against an alternative moral version of you that would have done it a different way. Like how if you do something bad, you always think later on, oh, I could have done it this way or could have done that. And again, in a religious way, that's what sort of repentance and forgiveness is all about. Religious people go, oh, I've been really out of order. I've gone against God's guidance. So now I've got to say sorry, and I've got to go to the priest and say, forgive me, Father, because I've sinned, and move your way back towards God. And but the same idea still works even if you're not religious at all, because if you've done something bad, you could either think in your head, oh, well, I'm just a bad person now, so I'll just carry on being evil. Or you could stop and think, right, I need to orient myself back in this direction of goodness. So just a quick thought there about even if you don't believe in God, I think in a way people are always looking up to some sort of higher standard or some sort of higher level of being, whether it's an actual person in the sky, or personality in the sky, sort of giving you guidance on what to do, or whether it's just an idea in your head, a bit like what that quote was saying, God only exists in the mind of believers. It exists in the mind of non-believers as well. Probably won't go on any more about those, because I bet you've written loads of good, clever points about them. So we'll move on to the next activity now. Oh, this is just a quick one on the PowerPoint. It just says, discuss with the person next to you whether or not you believe in God. Do you think there is a God? And explain your reasons in a clear and logical way. So again, pause this, wander around, find someone, ask them if they believe in God, and have a little thought-provoking conversation about that. And I'll just wait here again, pause it or something. I'll be here. See you in a minute. Bye. Did you do it? Great. Right, what's the next activity? Oh yeah, this is some terms for belief in God. So the next thing is that you have to learn some of the words that describe different states of belief about whether God's real or what God is like. So as we flick through, you'll find that we've already done some of these. A theist is someone who does believe in God. An atheist is someone who doesn't believe in God. You can flick through on the PowerPoint as you're going. An agnostic is someone who isn't sure whether God exists or not. There's different types of agnostic really. Some people have just never thought about whether God's real or not before. So it's sort of, you can be that kind of agnostic. And some people have thought about it loads and still don't believe it can be known either way, whether there's God. So that would be like a more thoughtful agnostic, I suppose. There's also different types of theist as well. So you've got monotheists, like the believing that there is only one God, like quite a lot of the religions, Islam, Judaism, Sikhism and Christianity. And then you've got polytheism that believes that there is more than one God. For example, Hindus worship more than one God. Although even Hindus would accept that there is one overarching God, Brahman, and they worship lots of distinct sort of gods that make up an understanding of what Brahman is. Okay, let's make it stop doing that noise. So annoying. Right. So the next activity then is to think that after you've gone away and thought what you are, whether you're a theist, an atheist or an agnostic or whatever, the next thing to think about is, why do some people believe or not believe in God? You can see on this slide here, for example, that some arguments for God are that some people believe that the world is beautifully designed. Some say there must be a cause to the universe to make it make sense. Some would say that people have claimed to have seen God or experienced God in some way, and would say that there's some ultimate purpose in the world. Humans are creative. We've got a shared sense of morality. People all around the world can arrive at the same moral conclusions, so maybe that comes from somewhere. And also, some people say, this is more of a response, I would say, to people who say that God isn't real because it can't be seen, or no one's ever seen God, because we know that loads of other things exist that we can't see, like electricity or, I don't know, the wind or love or something like that. Some of the other arguments against the existence of God are things like the existence of suffering and pain in the world. That idea that, again, that there's no evidence to prove it. So it's based on this idea that it's up to the believer to show that God exists. So if you're an atheist, you shouldn't have to prove that God isn't real. You know, some people, it depends which way around you see it. Some psychologists, like Sigmund Freud, for one, might suggest that God is an idea that people have created to make this painful existence more bearable. Scientists might say the universe doesn't necessarily need a beginning or anything to create it. That next one, why doesn't God help us? That's just a rehashing of the top one, suffering and pain. It's like just not being able to understand why there's suffering in the world. And then again, in a more scientific approach, science has proved religion wrong. So there's some ideas for and against. So maybe that will help you. Maybe go back now, find the person that you had that initial conversation with, and just put some of these different ideas to them, depending on which side you think is the best side, for or against. If there's any of those arguments that they raise, like, oh, there's suffering and pain in the world, that's why there's no God, see maybe if you can think of some responses to that, like maybe there's a reason for suffering, or maybe the point of life isn't to be happy, it's to find meaning. Or you might be able to think of some different ideas to come up with to argue one of these sides back against the other person, depending on what you thought. You might all just agree in your house that there is or isn't God, and you might have it all sorted in your head, in which case, well done, because I still haven't got a clue. So on with the lesson then. The next thing to think about, and the lesson is what are the lesson objectives for this. What we just did was sort of a bit of a starter just to get you thinking about whether or not God's real and things like that. But the next couple of activities, we're going to be thinking about pondering the nature of the universe a little bit, and thinking about where God might be, if it's a thing, and why we talk about God the way that we do as people. So the lesson objectives are to be able to analyse ideas about what God is and where God might be. Then secondly, to be able to explain the design argument for the existence of God, and then evaluate whether or not the design argument proves that there is a God. If there's one way to sort of prove that God exists, maybe some people think the design argument is the best is the best argument to do that. I'm not so sure it is, but have a look. Anyway, the next question actually for you to be pondering and discussing with people is, some people think that God is in the sky or God is somewhere up there, and people pray usually to submit themselves to God because they acknowledge that God's above them. Sometimes people, if something goes wrong, they look up to the sky and go, "Oh God, why didn't you help me?" So yeah, just think about that for a minute and just think, what way is up? Write out your little ideas on a bit of paper or something like that to have a little think about it for a while, and what way is up, and then come back. I'll just wait here, just pause it and talk about it in a minute. And if you did that, hopefully you're back now and you've done it, hopefully it led you on a bit of a philosophical journey, because a lot of people think, right, well, up is just in the sky, so it's quite straightforward. But it's not so straightforward really. If you imagine this football is the earth, for example, and you're stood here in the UK looking up and going, right, up is that way for me, so that's the sky up there, and that's where God lives, so God is here. Wish I had a little model of God. No, haven't got one. But an Australian person would be the opposite, and they'd be going, God's up there, and that up to them is this way. So it's two different directions up is. So up isn't really a direction. And then if you think about this, the earth that we're standing on, that's spinning around like this, and then that's going around the sun every year. And so if you say, right, well, up is towards the sun, but the sun's only one star in a big cluster of billions of stars in our galaxy, and then there's billions of galaxies. So up hasn't really got any sort of locational value, really. It's more of a relative term to where we are that we sort of use on Earth. But to say that God is up isn't actually pointing to a specific place. So it just makes you wonder why human beings have always thought of God as being up in the sky and maybe the devil down below. And one suggestion is that it links back to ancient ways of thinking about the universe. So, for example, in the Bible, it talks about God creating a firmament, a separation between the earth and the heavens, and it kind of sometimes is represented a bit like this picture on the next slide of the PowerPoint, with God in the sky, human beings in between, and then the devil and hell being in an underworld kind of realm. And lots of different myths in the Bible sort of jump on that idea as well, and talk about God being in the sky in a similar way to God or goodness being an idea that is sort of put there to be above us. I hope this is all making sense, but there's one that you looked at in year 7, which is called the Tower of Babel, where people built a tower up towards the heavens to try and literally find God, and God wasn't happy with that, so he spread people all about everywhere. And it's one of those sort of origin myths that talks about why things got to be the way that they are. Anyway, I won't go into too much detail about that because we're only doing year 9 philosophy of religion. But there's another image on the next slide of a flat disc sort of idea of the universe. But so it doesn't really make much sense to think of God as being up in the sky. So in terms of location, if you're thinking about where God might be, I'd suggest that most religious people don't literally think of God as being up in the sky. They think of it as some sort of concept that hasn't really got any physical sort of specific place in the world. God might just be either everywhere or separate. Some people say God is separate to the universe. Some say God is bound up within everything that the universe is. Hindus would say that Brahman literally almost is the universe. It's the ultimate explanation of what the universe is and where it comes from. And they would say that Brahman is something like the fundamental underpinning principle of reality, something like that kind of binds everything together and gives everything its existence somehow. Anyway, the next activity is to think about why we speak about God sometimes as if God were some sort of human being. I wonder why we do that. For example, sometimes God is described as being some kind of human being. In the Genesis, God is described as walking in the Garden of Eden and creating humans in God's image. So again, God is considered to be quite human-like, and God gets jealous when people start worshipping idols and things like that. So if God doesn't have a human body and isn't human, why do religious people refer to God in human ways, like saying God is our Father or saying God is the King? These are kind of human words, King and Father. So to think about that, well, I sort of ruined it there with the answer on the next slide. The answer is that we use the words as metaphors. Words are used to create an image or add character to something. Like the example I've given there is the cloud is cotton wool. Cloud isn't really cotton wool, but it's a way that we might describe a cloud so that somebody could understand it better or get a feeling for the texture of it. So if we make something more human, then that means that we can understand it a bit better. So we're anthropomorphizing God. So have a little think about that now on a piece of paper. See if you can write as many qualities that each of these people has. So a typical good father, a typical king, and a typical good honest judge. And see if you can come up with at least 6 qualities for each of those people. And then when you've done that, circle the qualities that religious people might also use to talk about God. So for example, if you've written fair for a judge, circle that, because religious people would definitely say that God is fair and is a good judge. And then try and underneath to see if you can explain why people find it useful to use these words to talk about God. So hopefully if you did that reasonably well, you'll have a big load of qualities around those characters, father, judge and king. And hopefully you've written stuff around them like a king is mighty and powerful, a father is caring and wants to teach you and guide you through life and stuff like that. And what about a judge? Should be honest and clever, I suppose, to work out what the truth is. And yeah, so, and then if you circle the qualities that religious people have also would use to describe God, you'd see that it's probably most of them. So that kind of gives you the answer in a way. Hopefully underneath you, when you answered that question, why do people use human words to talk about God? Hopefully you've got written something along the lines of, we use human words to describe God because it helps us as humans to understand God better. If you're a religious person, you probably don't know, well, nobody knows what God is fully, and you probably haven't got much of a clue in real terms what God is like. But by thinking about God in using human characteristics, we can try to build up a picture of what God might be like. So for example, that's why some religious people like that psalm that goes, "The Lord is my shepherd." They don't think God actually is a shepherd running around after sheep and standing around in a field, literally, but in the sense that God, they feel like God is a force that guides them through life or watches over them and will bring them back towards the main flock if they get in trouble anytime soon. Then yeah, that's probably why people use those kinds of words. They're not using them literally. God isn't literally your father who's going to go, tidy up your room, human, because it just doesn't make literal sense. But it conveys a lot of meaning if you use these words correctly to and understand them in the right way to think about God and try and figure out what God kind of is really, because again, no one really knows. It's a mystery. Anyway, so now we've been thinking about where God might be, what kind of ways we describe God. the final activity in this lesson, because you've been working so hard today if you've done all this, the final thing is to think about, we're going to think about a specific argument that religious people might use to describe or to try and prove that there is such a thing as God existed in the world. So on the next PowerPoint slide, what you've got to do, it says, there are some images on the next couple of slides, and on your paper you've just got to write down and reflect on those images and think, do these things show that there is design in the world, that there's some sort of designer to it? One of the most popular arguments for the existence of God is that the universe looks like it's been designed. So some religious people would say that because it looks like it's been designed, then it is designed, and there must be a designer for that. So you've got to look at these 4 pictures, one of a flower, one of some sort of explosion of heat from the sun, the earth. Believe it or not, the earth is that tiny little picture of the spot down there. It's quite an awesome picture. That, I think, is some sort of bacteria or something like that. And then we've got animals in nature and things. But, just, you don't even need these pictures really, because what you should do when you're jotting down your ideas is think about the elements of design around you, or even you as a thing are an element of design. I always get amazed. You're going to think this is just weird, but if you ever get really fed up, just think to yourself, look, I think now in my head I'm going to move my hand, and it works. Stuff like that is just amazing, that a thought that isn't even a real physical thing, just a thought in your head that's not a physical thing, makes a physical thing happen, like makes a lump of meat move about. Weird. And also, you've probably got your own examples. Even if you live in a city like me, you can find natural beauty anywhere if you just look at a tree. For example, hang on, I'll show you this. Just turn the camera around and look. We come out here. And again, even if you just live in the middle of a city, the park here is just lovely. Like these trees, you don't often find me saying things like this, but it is just beautiful place to be. And you think, wow, did something make this, or is it just all random? Don't really know. Might stay out here now. So again, that's pretty much it for this lesson. And the final slide on the PowerPoint just says, think about the world. Does it look like it's been designed? Does it make you think that a thoughtful and creative force has made it? Again, try and get your head away from this idea that God is literally a human being walking about. Because lots of people, the thing I find interesting about the philosophy of religion is a lot of people are trapped in a really pedestrian view of God. And then it makes them actually move away from believing in God. I mean, I don't know whether God exists or not, but I know that if I believed that God was actually a human being walking around, and if someone said to me, God made the world, and in my head I've got this idea of an actual human sellotaping the heads on all the squirrels to make them, and going around going, I've made a tree, now I've made another tree. Again, that wouldn't make much philosophical sense to me, so I'd probably end up not believing in God. I'd say, yeah, it's not real. But if you try and get around the idea that most religious people who believe that there is a God aren't thinking of God in that way. They're not thinking of an actual human being sitting on the clouds looking down on us. They're thinking of some sort of more spiritual force that is responsible for everything in the universe. So again, when you're thinking about this final question, does the universe look like it's been created by a thoughtful, powerful, intelligent creator? Try not to think too literally. Just look at the evidence of the universe and just think, does it look like it's been made, or does it not? As always in RS lessons, I don't know what to believe. I can't tell you what to believe. Everyone believes different things, and that's why RS is such an awesome subject. in my opinion. Obviously, I'm going to say that anyway. But anyway, well done for your work that you've done today. I hope you did it and did well and didn't cheat on all the tests and on all the activities. And if you keep your work together, and you can put it back in your folder when we get back to school. And if we're not back at school, I'll probably be seeing you in a couple, or you'll be seeing me in a couple of weeks for another lesson of philosophy of religion. But if we're back at school, then I'll see you back at school. Whatever. Right. See you later. Bye.